Jill, a cold morning, a frightened little girl, and a garbage man who never expected his ordinary day to turn into something extraordinary. Lily ran barefoot into the streets, tears streaming down her face. She had no one to turn to until she saw him. A garbage man, just doing his job, became the only hope she had left. But when he saw the terror in her eyes and the bruises on her arms, he knew something was horribly wrong. And minutes later, the police arrived, shutting down the entire street. But what was the dark secret behind it all? And how did one man's kindness change everything forever? She ran out crying, but no one stopped. Until he did. A simple garbage man, just another ordinary day. But when a little girl ran into his arms, shaking with fear, he knew he couldn't just walk away. What he discovered left him speechless. And what happened next? No one saw it coming. Stay with us till the end, because this story will leave you in tears and restore your faith in humanity. Never forget to like, share, and subscribe. It was an ordinary morning in the quiet suburbs, where the hum of lawnmowers and the distant chatter of birds created a peaceful rhythm. Mark, a dedicated garbage collector, had been following his usual route, tossing bags into the back of his truck with practiced ease. Then something unusual happened. A sudden noise, rapid footsteps, broke the stillness. Mark turned just in time to see a little girl, barefoot and in pajamas, sprinting toward him. Her blonde hair was unkempt, her face stained with tears, and her small body trembled with every step. "Please, help me!" she sobbed, gripping his uniform. Mark kneeled, his heart pounding. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Are you hurt?" The girl frantically shook her head, pointing toward the house behind her. "He's still inside!" "Please, before he wakes up." Mark's gaze followed her finger. The house looked normal, neatly trimmed hedges, closed curtains, and a porch light still glowing faintly from the night before. But something felt off. The door was slightly ajar, and an eerie silence clung to the air. A chill crawled down his spine. "Who's inside, honey?" Mark asked gently. The girl's lips quivered. "My stepdad. He said if I made a noise, he'd—" She cut herself off, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Mark's stomach twisted, his hands clenched into fists. He knew he had to act fast. He reached for his phone. "Stay with me, kid," he murmured, hitting 911. Before he could speak, movement from inside the house caught his eye. A dark silhouette loomed behind the curtains. Someone was watching. Then, bang! The front door slammed shut. Mark's instincts were screaming at him. He tightened his grip on the phone as the emergency operator answered. "This is Mark, a sanitation worker. A little girl just ran out of a house, terrified. I think she's in danger. We need officers here now." "Address?" the dispatcher asked urgently. Mark turned, scanning the nearest mailbox. He rattled off the address, his pulse racing. "Stay with the child," the operator instructed. "Units are on the way." Mark nodded, pulling the girl closer. "You're safe now, sweetheart," he assured her. But deep down, he knew. Whatever was happening inside that house wasn't over yet. Minutes felt like hours. Mark's truck rumbled idly, but he couldn't focus on anything except keeping the little girl safe. He crouched beside her, his arm protectively around her small frame. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked softly. "Lily," she whispered, clutching the fabric of his sleeve. "Okay, Lily, the police are coming. Can you tell me what happened?" She hesitated, glancing at the house as if expecting someone to barge out any second. "He gets mean when Mom's not home," she admitted. "Last night, he locked me in my room. I didn't eat. I was scared." Mark's jaw tightened. "Where's your mom?" "At work. She leaves early. He doesn't like me talking to her." Mark swallowed the anger bubbling in his chest. No child should live in fear like this. Just then, the sound of sirens pierced the air. Flashing blue and red lights painted the neighborhood as two police cruisers skidded to a stop. Officers rushed out, hands on their holsters, their eyes scanning the scene. Mark stood, lifting Lily gently. She ran out crying. Says her stepfather is inside. One of the officers, a tall woman with a firm but kind expression, kneeled beside Lily. Sweetheart, is there anyone else in the house? Lily nodded, fear returning to her eyes. He's still there. The officer motioned to her partner, who spoke into his radio. We've got a possible child endangerment situation. Requesting backup. Then another loud noise. A crash from inside the house. Mark's gut twisted. He watched as the officers immediately sprang into action, guns drawn as they moved toward the front door. LAPD, open up! Silence. Then footsteps. Heavy, uneven steps. The door creaked open, and a man appeared. Tall, unshaven. His eyes bloodshot. His clothes were wrinkled, and his posture was aggressive. What the hell is going on? He slurred. An officer stepped forward. Sir, we received a report of a child in danger. Step outside. The man's lip curled. That brat ran off, didn't she? I told her to stay in her damn room. Mark saw red. His fists clenched, but he held himself back. This wasn't his fight. It was the officer's. The lead officer exchanged glances with her partner. Turn around and put your hands where we can see them. For a second, the man hesitated. Then, he bolted. Officers lunged, tackling him to the ground as he thrashed and cursed. Get off me! I didn't do anything! He yelled. Lily whimpered, hiding her face against Mark's chest. As the officers cuffed the man, one turned to Lily. Sweetie, you're safe now! Tears welled up in her eyes as she clung to Mark. For the first time in a long time, she finally believed those words. The tension in the air slowly began to dissipate as the officers hauled Lily's stepfather into the back of the police car. His wrists were bound in cold metal cuffs, his face twisted in anger. Mark stood protectively beside Lily, who refused to let go of his sleeve. Her small fingers clutched the fabric like a lifeline, her body still trembling despite the safety around her. Officer Carter, the tall woman who had first approached Lily, kneeled in front of her again. Sweetheart, we're going to take you somewhere safe. Do you have any family nearby? Someone who can take care of you? Lily hesitated, then shook her head. Just my mom, she whispered. But she's at work. She doesn't know. Mark's heart ached at the way she said it. So small, so uncertain, as if she wasn't sure whether her own mother would come for her. Officer Carter turned to her partner. We need to call the mother immediately. The second officer, Rodriguez, nodded and stepped away, speaking into his radio. Meanwhile, Carter turned her attention back to Lily. Sweetie, did your stepfather ever hurt you? Lily's lips trembled. She dropped her gaze to the pavement, kicking at the small pebbles beneath her bare feet. Sometimes, she admitted in a near whisper. Mostly when Mom wasn't home. He'd yell a lot, lock me in my room, take my food. Mark clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. It was worse than he thought. A child should never endure such cruelty. Did he ever hit you? Carter asked gently. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Once, when I tried to tell Mom. Mark exhaled sharply, his chest tightening with emotion. He had heard stories like this before, but seeing it firsthand, seeing Lily's broken spirit, the fear in her innocent eyes, was something else different. Officer Carter stood and exchanged a look with Mark. She's going to need more than just a safe place. She needs people who care about her. Mark didn't even have to think. He rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. She's got me, he said firmly. Before Carter could respond, Rodriguez walked back over. We got in touch with the mother. She's on her way. Lily's eyes flickered with hope. She is? Rodriguez nodded. She sounded worried, sweetheart. She's coming as fast as she can. Mark felt a small sigh of relief escape Lily's lips as she leaned into his side. For now, she was safe, but he had a feeling this was only the beginning of her journey. The quiet hum of the morning had been replaced by a tension-filled silence. The flashing red and blue lights of the police cars painted the suburban street in an eerie glow. Mark remained by Lily's side, his protective stance unwavering. Then, the sound of screeching tires shattered the silence. A small dented sedan came to an abrupt halt at the edge of the scene. The driver's side door flung open, and a woman, no older than her mid-30s, stumbled out. Her brown hair was tied in a messy bun, her face pale and panic-stricken. She was still in her waitress uniform, the name tag hanging loosely from her chest. "Lily!" she cried, her voice cracking. Lily's body stiffened, her wide eyes locking onto her mother. For a moment, she didn't move, as if afraid this was just another dream that would dissolve into reality. Then, she ran. "Mom!" Lily's tiny voice broke into a sob as she launched herself into her mother's arms. The woman collapsed to her knees, wrapping Lily in a desperate embrace. "Oh, baby, I'm so sorry! I didn't know! I didn't know!" Her voice trembled as she rocked her daughter back and forth. Mark felt a lump rise in his throat. This was the moment Lily had needed, the warmth of a mother who, despite everything, loved her. Officer Carter stepped forward, allowing them a moment before speaking. "Ma'am, are you aware of what's been happening in your home?" Lily's mother, still clutching her daughter, looked up with tear-filled eyes. "I work double shifts. I'm barely home." She turned to Lily, cupping her tiny face. "Why didn't you tell me, sweetheart?" Lily sniffled, her lips trembling. "I tried," she whispered, "but he said if I did, he'd make me disappear." The woman let out a broken sob, pulling Lily closer. "Oh, baby, I would have never let that happen. I would have protected you." Officer Rodriguez spoke gently. "We've arrested him. He won't be coming back." A wave of relief crossed the mother's face, but it was quickly replaced by guilt. "I should have known. I should have seen the signs," she whispered. Mark finally spoke. "What matters now is that she's safe. You still have a chance to make things right." The woman turned to him, truly seeing him for the first time. "You saved my daughter?" Mark gave a small nod. "She saved herself. She ran. I just made sure someone listened." Tears filled the mother's eyes again. Thank you so much." Lily, still holding on to her mother, turned her head and whispered something Mark would never forget. "I wasn't scared because I knew he was there." Mark's heart clenched, and for the first time, he realized just how much this little girl had changed his life, too. The morning sun had begun to rise higher, casting a soft golden glow over the quiet street. The flashing lights of the police cars had faded, and the neighbors who had gathered to watch the commotion had slowly retreated into their homes. But for Lily and her mother, the world had just shifted forever. Lily clung to her mother, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric of her uniform like she was afraid to let go. Mark stood a few steps away, watching the emotional reunion unfold, his heart heavy with unspoken thoughts. Officer Carter cleared her throat gently. "Ma'am, we need to discuss what happens next. Your husband has been arrested for child abuse and neglect. Depending on the investigation, there may be further charges." Lily's mother, still holding her daughter close, wiped at her tear-streaked face. "I don't care what happens to him," she said, her voice firm for the first time. "I just want to make sure my daughter is safe." Mark felt a sense of relief at her words. The love in her eyes was real. There was no doubt about that. But love alone wouldn't be enough. She would have to fight to rebuild Lily's trust. Officer Rodriguez glanced at Mark before speaking. "Social services will need to be involved. It's protocol in cases like this. Lily may need to stay somewhere safe while they assess the situation." The mother's face paled. "You mean, they might take her away from me?" Carter softened her voice. "Only if they determine she's not safe at home. But if you cooperate, if you show them you're willing to do whatever it takes, you can prove that she belongs with you." Lily tightened her grip on her mother's arm. "I don't want to go anywhere else," she whispered. Mark stepped forward then, unable to stay silent any longer. "She's been through too much already. She needs stability, not more fear." He turned to the officers. "Is there a way for her to stay with her mother while the investigation happens?" Rodriguez exchanged a look with Carter before nodding. If she has a strong support system, it could help her case. The mother looked at Mark, desperation in her eyes. I don't have anyone. No family here. No one to help. Mark hesitated, but only for a second. Then he turned to Carter. What if I vouch for them? What if I help? Carter raised an eyebrow. You'd be willing to take that responsibility. Mark looked at Lily, this little girl who had run to him in the darkest moment of her life, who had trusted him when no one else listened. He already knew the answer. Yes, he said firmly. I'll help. Lily's mother stared at him, her lips parting in shock. Lily, standing between them, turned to Mark with wide, hopeful eyes. You'd stay? She whispered. Mark kneeled in front of her, meeting her gaze. I'll be here as long as you need me, kid. For the first time since he had met her, a small smile broke across Lily's face. And for the first time in a long while, Mark knew he had found something worth fighting for. Days had passed since the chaotic morning when Lily ran to Mark for help. The investigation was still ongoing, but for now, Lily had been allowed to stay with her mother, under the condition that Mark remained involved as a support system. Mark didn't hesitate. Every day, after finishing his garbage collection route, he stopped by the small apartment where Lily and her mother lived. It wasn't much, a tiny two-bedroom space with peeling wallpaper and a creaky front door. But it was home, or at least, it was trying to be. Lily's mother, Anna, had thrown herself into proving that she could be the mother her daughter deserved. She rearranged her work schedule, found a better-paying job at a local diner, and even started therapy to understand how she had overlooked the signs of abuse. But the real challenge was rebuilding trust with Lily. One evening, as Mark sat on the worn-out couch, watching Lily quietly color in a book, he noticed the way she kept glancing at the door. Every small sound outside made her flinch. Even with her stepfather gone, fear still lived in her heart. Are you okay, kid? Mark asked gently. Lily hesitated, her crayon pausing mid-stroke. He's not coming back, right? Mark's heart clenched. He wanted to give her the absolute reassurance she needed, but he also knew that fear didn't vanish overnight. No, sweetheart, Anna said, walking in from the kitchen. She kneeled beside Lily, brushing a strand of hair from her face. He's gone. And I promise you, I won't ever let anyone hurt you again. Lily stared at her mother for a long moment, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. How do I know? She whispered. Anna's breath caught. She looked at Mark, as if searching for guidance. He gave her an encouraging nod. You don't have to believe me right away, Anna said, her voice trembling. But I'll show you. Every single day, I'll show you that you're safe, that you're loved. Lily studied her mother's face. Then, slowly, she leaned forward, tentatively, hesitantly, and wrapped her small arms around Anna's neck. Anna let out a choked sob, holding her daughter tightly, as if she could somehow erase all the pain of the past with that one embrace. Mark exhaled softly, warmth spreading through his chest. Lily was healing, and maybe, just maybe, so was he. Weeks passed, and the small apartment slowly became filled with warmth instead of fear. Lily still had moments where she woke up crying in the middle of the night, but now she wasn't alone. Her mother was always there to hold her, whispering reassurances that she was safe. And Mark, he had become more than just a protector. He had become family. Every evening after his shift, he knocked on their door, bringing small surprises for Lily. Sometimes a book, sometimes a silly drawing he made on a scrap of cardboard during work breaks. They weren't grand gifts, but they made her smile, and that was enough. One afternoon, as they sat outside on the apartment's front steps, Lily looked up at Mark with her bright, curious eyes. Do you have a family? She asked. Mark hesitated. Had one once, but not anymore. Lily frowned. What happened? Mark sighed, staring off into the distance. Lost my parents young. Went from home to home. Never really had anyone who stayed. Lily was quiet for a long time before she whispered, That's kind of like me. Mark looked down at her, his heart aching at the truth in her words. "But you have someone now," he said softly. "Your mom. And me, if you'll have me." Lily gave him a small, shy smile and reached out, slipping her tiny hand into his calloused one. "I want you to stay." At that moment, Mark knew he had found something he never thought he would: belonging. Months later, when the case was officially closed, and Lily's mother was granted full custody with no risk of losing her daughter, Anna did something that took Mark by surprise. She handed him a key. "You're part of this family now," she said simply. "If you ever need a home, you'll always have one here." Mark swallowed hard, emotions hitting him all at once. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just passing through. He was staying. Lily grinned up at him. "Forever?" Mar chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Forever, kid." And as they stood together, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, Mark knew that no matter where life had taken him before, it had finally led him to the place he was always meant to be. Enjoyed this story? Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Let's spread the message of hope and unity together. Thanks, and take care.